Hey guys.
Hi.
I didn't know I was going first, so sorry. All right. Well, I initially started off. It was my topic was about women leading the resistance in Honduras, and as I sat down to write it, I kind of went in a little bit of a different direction. So I'm gonna be a little bit ranty. So bear with me, comrades. It's just a very complicated situation that's happening right now over there, and there's just a lot of different factors, and there's heavy U.S. hand imperialist stuff going on, so it's just very frustrating. Anyway, so I mean, I'm sure that most of you guys have heard about the coup that's happening over there, and I specifically use the word coup because that's what it is. And in today's climate, moderates especially want us to use nicer words, things that sound nicer. So they would like to call it, it's a disagreement on the outcome of the election. Different bodies are saying different things. It's a coup. And the reason that they don't want to call it that is because then they would be forced to take action, and they don't want to take action. It's easier to package it up prettily and make it seem like it's nobody's problem, but that's not what it is. So as revolutionaries and activists, then we must never shrink ourselves or our beliefs, and we can never lose our own truth to make them comfortable, especially not when lives are at stake and lives have already been lost because of this. So in Honduras, there have been over 30 deaths since the election happened and the results came out. And Juan Orlando Hernandez orchestrated massive electoral fraud in order to maintain power, even though the Honduran constitution mandates one-term presidencies. Just to put that out there. And so that's the official count. 30 or 31, I believe, is like some of the most recent numbers I saw. So everybody in this room, we know that the numbers are actually probably a lot higher. And yesterday, opposition leader and the former president, Manuel Zelaya, was tear gassed by, you guessed it, US-trained riot police. And at least 1,500 people have been jailed for their protests against this obvious attempt at retaining power on behalf of the Ho regime. So there have been immense crackdowns on the resistance while the United States continues to funnel millions of dollars in aid to Ho, despite numerous human rights violations, which they're really not allowed to do because in order to qualify for US aid, you need to meet certain human rights, requirements to say that you're not doing certain abuses. So, and these human rights violations are include but are not limited to the shooting of Delmer Medina, where US-trained forces shot him in the street, and similar to what the police did here with Michael Brown, they let him bleed out in the street for hours and refused to let anybody help him or transport him to a hospital or get him any help. So this is what's happening over there right now. So how did we get here? And who is leading the resistance? So in 2009, I could go back to 1492 if you really want me to be honest. But the most recent, what has led to this most recent bout of instability was in 2009, there was a coup orchestrated with help from Hillary Clinton under the Obama administration. And she wrote about it in her book. Totally just told everybody about her part in it. So so she helped funded money, gave money and resources and military training. Actually, the military who had been considering doing this coup went to Washington and met with US military officials who gave them advice on how they could go about orchestrating this coup. They kidnapped Zelaya and put him on a plane to get him out of the country. So, and this was through direct US involvement. So, since then, the situation in Honduras has considerably worsened for women, especially the LGBT community and indigenous communities all throughout the country. As of today, Honduras has the highest rate of murder per capita in the world, and it is the deadliest country in the world to be an environmental or LGBT activist. And, conservatives would say, oh, well, exactly, these countries are shitholes, but nobody wants to look at how did this happen? How was this enabled? Who gave them the money and the resources to do this? And why is the entire international community looking the other way? These are the questions we really need to be asking. So, two brave women lost their lives fighting In April of 2017, Sherilyn Montoya was found dead in Tegucigalpa, and she was a trans activist, and she was found strangled in one of the neighborhoods, and that's just to show how dangerous this is, and that's something that occurs every single day. She was very prominent, so her death was reported on, but there are probably countless members of the LGBT community that we will never know. We'll never hear their names because the Honduran state has decided that they don't matter. And then in March 2016, Berta Cáceres was found dead in La Esperanza in her house. And the government tried to say that they found like 3 or 4 people who were responsible for this, and there's like a mock, investigation happening. But an independent investigation found that her assassination had actually been planned for months by all levels of the Honduran government. This went all the way up to the top. They were planning her assassination. So, and for those of you who are not familiar with her work, she was of the Lenca people in Honduras, and she led them similar in a Standing Rock kind of fashion, similar to what happened here. They organized a year-long protest against a dam that was being built on their sacred lands, and they actually won. And she won multiple international awards. This is what made her so dangerous, was that she won. So I would just like for everybody to just take a moment, if we could just have a moment of silence for all the people in Honduras who have lost their lives, not just today, but dating back, everybody who's lost their lives to imperialism and colonization and all of these brutal systems. So. All right, thank you guys. And Juan Orlando Hernandez is the cause of this. He came into power, and he has put in numerous neoliberal policies, capitalist policies. The slogan is Honduras is open for business. They're trying to get international money in, international corporations and international money in there so that they can kind of just repeat in the past the landed elites who had all this resources and all this access to wealth and stuff like that, while the rest of the country is suffering. So what happened that night was that they had announced that they were going to release the election results that night, probably around 8 o'clock. Much later than that, they announced that 57% of the vote had been counted, and Nasralla had a 5-point lead. And both Hernandez and Nasralla had declared victory. But one of the members of the election board had came out, and he told the press that shortly after the voting centers closed, the technical staff had informed him and that his colleagues that with 70% of the votes counted, the trend favored Nasralla, and it was irreversible. So then, all of a sudden, there was pressure to just turn off to stop counting and turn off all of their election material and everything like that. And so then, when it finally came back up, all of a sudden, Nasralla's 5-point lead began to just erode and just went away. And then Ho was all of a sudden with a 1.5% lead, and that's supposed to determine who should be the leader of the country. Anyway. But yeah, so, and he has been accused, he has connections to drug trafficking, which, as I'm sure we all know, especially in Central America, is tearing the entire region apart and is a huge problem over there. So he's kind of just allowing the traffickers to come through and just run around and do whatever they want. And he also is accused of embezzlement. It was reported that he took about $90 million from the the Honduran Social Security Fund. So he's literally taking social safety net money from the people of Honduras and used it for his campaign. Absolutely disgusting. So I wanted to read something really quick. So there is hope, though, at least for the people right now. So the Opposition Alliance has called for renewed protests to guarantee that the agony of the precarious institutionality of the Ho regime will be over in 10 days. They emitted a press release yesterday in which they further announced that beginning January 27th, they will not recognize any public authority anymore because the constitutionally recognized democratic state won't exist anymore. So they're basically just gearing up to be in for the fight. and the severe repression that they face, the fact that the international community has not said anything is not, there were calls for a recount and a revote, and that never materialized. So it kind of just remains to be seen what exactly is going to happen over there. But with all the deaths that have happened and all the imprisonment that's already happened, it's not looking too positive over there. But I'm hoping that this, with our support and with the people in the international community who actually care, with our vocal support, and if we continue to put pressure on our officials and say that this is not right, do not recognize Ho as the head of state, hopefully we can see some change. So thank you guys.